guys are having a good night. And for the purpose of this talk, to keep it like a bit fresh, I want you to think from the beginning of the talk to the end of the talk, one word that represents the night and the emotions you're feeling at the moment. And then we will discuss that later on. But just one word, and you don't have to take it too seriously. It could be light or not. So thank you all for being here. My name is Kofi Oduro. I also go by Illis Preacher, and my speech today is about coding and social connections in public spaces. And beforehand, I should just tell a little about myself. I'm a creative coder and also call myself an expansion experience enhancer, where I merge an array of different stuff together to make unique experiences that promote discussion and reflection. Over 10 years of being a performer and doing audio visual output, I sort of see things where people wouldn't really see it. And I like blending things like poetry, videography, coding, biology, sociology, all these things together. Because one thing I realize as humans, sometimes we forget that things really do merge and connect. So in all my works, I always try to have a reflection of things that we don't normally see as being connected, but in the end they are. And I love code as a medium for that, because whenever you code, you have the opportunity to have something else control the output while you are able to engage. I tell people I like to code this because when you're doing music, video, or any other art form, every step is controlled by you. When you draw the shape. But when you let the computer take control, is this kind of feedback, or one of my collaborators called ping pong session, that allow us to engage. And for the first part, this is something that I have come to all these years, is that code is poetry, poetry is code, code is expression where the experiment roams. And to show you right now an example of this is this website called Inverse, where when you're coding, as you can see on the screen, the words that you choose determine the outcome of the image that's shown on the screen. So right now, I'm going to show you a bit of live coding. And that word I told you to listen to, try to take that word during this performance, and then you will see how code blends. Code is As you can see, every word that I typed changed the outcome of what was happening. And this is one of the things that I like to show people right away, because this showcases how poetry and code are directly implemented. Because poetry is a bunch of instructions, and every day we do code. Every day we do code because we have a routine. The first time you wake up in the morning, you decide if you're going to take a shower or brush your teeth. And this is what brings me this comparison to the areas of live coding, which is the type of coding I do, where I go live and everything can be done, as you can see. So I just showed you text and a bit of a performance, but there's also other forms of live coding, such as textile and objects and sound and visuals. And the reason why I like to show these kind of mediums is because they allow expression. As I showed you there, every word had a meaning, but not only a meaning to us, but a meaning to the computer. And one way coding does that is that it allows this ability to try to translate between human and machine. Because we always think about humans to humans, but now with a lot of stuff going remotely, it is a good experiment and a good virtue to try to think of, because right now we're not only trying to express ourselves from human to human, but we're trying to express ourselves from human to machine, then back to human. And also experiment. I think as an adult, sometimes we don't play enough and we don't experiment enough. And when I say experiment, it could be something simple as changing the color of toothpaste. Or if you like to eat spicy food, maybe try different blends and play. And I'm going to show another example because sometimes when you say these things, it doesn't come out live. But now this is another program called livecode.net. And now you're going to see that every one second, one second. There's a minor glitch. Hold up, let me reshare the screen because there's a minor glitch. There we go. And now you're going to see the impact of live coding, where I can alter how you view the experience by just changing a couple lines. And the beauty of this is that even if you don't know what I'm doing, you sort of get an idea of how it changes. And as you can see, by just changing different lines, I'm able to change the appearance of what you see. And then I could even change the shape. And this is experimentation and playing because right now I'm not even really sure what I'm typing. I'm just trying to give the audience a thing. And this is what I think that the remote experience right now could use a bit is how do we let people get that humanity within technology? Because one thing that makes us human is the way we relate to randomness, the way we relate when things that we haven't seen before can motivate us and move us. And like I said before, even if some of you never seen this language, you sort of build in thoughts of what is he doing? Does it even make sense? What use is this? And all of these things are very valid emotions that naturally do happen. As you can see. Let me just do another session. Let's change this up a bit with noise. Right. And you see by there, just changing a bit and having the expression of, okay, I want to have some paranoise, I want to have some killer, I'm able to enhance the experience with minimal lines. Let me just stop share and then reshare. And then, as I explained, you just play, because this is a notion. And what is the point of all of these different things that I'm showcasing right now? Is the ability to interact, the ability to reflect. Even when you don't understand something or you understand something, there's always a reflection period. And that's one thing that I like to do when I do these playful coding experiences is the ability to reflect and interact and collaborate. Because a lot of these things, as you see, I just build it on what other people do. But also, I can see usually when I do these live performances, the way it alters that people face. When I type in 4.1112344, numbers and all of these have meanings, and it's the collaboration that we all have, and misdirection, where some things I just type to not make sense. And of course, randomness, because everything happens on the fly. Everything happens on the fly. And that's very important. Like I said before, it's a big component of randomness because that is what makes humans humans, that randomosity. And I guess one thing I want to keep repeating is how do we make little bouts of randomness in our life that changes how we view the day? Is it that instead of one day brushing with your right hand, you brush with your left hand? And these are things that I is very explorable to code, but maybe can mimic on how we can change different emotion and aspects of our life. And how did I come about this whole life writing concept? Well, we can start with the book versus movie concept. Have you realized that everyone always says they like a book better than they like a movie? Why? And one of the things is that in a book, when it says it's a rainy day or snowy day, it depends on where you live that you make the visuals in your head. So if I say in a book it's snowy, me being in Montreal, I think a snowy day as 20 inches or 40 centimeters of snow, a very harsh snowy day. But if you are in Israel, for example, it could just be 2, 3 centimeters. But in a movie, they always have to take some of the aspects that make reading fun for themselves. So how about if we were able to think of a way of using code and its generative things with AI predictability, where depending on where you're watching, let's say I tell it I'm watching from Mexico, let's say. So it will take into account that, okay, today in Mexico is a hot day. So if there's supposed to be a rainy day, maybe it might take the weather of Mexico to bring it in. And these are some of the ways where code doesn't really have to be the main medium of your art form, but it can enhance that philosophy of giving people that sense of you're personalizing them without having to do too much. And also the colors and the shapes. Like I said before earlier, all of you were watched where I gave you a word of how is your night. If you were all to type it in, what the word that you thought of when you were thinking of the night, we probably get different meaning. Or if I were to tell you right now, choose the color red. As you know, there's 100 color reds: crimson, rose, maroon, purple. There's some purples that look reddish. And these are all the type of things that make that interaction very important, especially when you're trying to say code is poetry. Because one thing that makes poetry is that every word has a different meaning based on the person reacting to it or the person reading it. And then there's the relatability and the bias. You start seeing your biases. You start seeing the stuff. Because as humans, we do go through this continuous trend of biasness as we think the same way. So it does help to reinforce, but at the same time, it helps to produce ideas that are outside your head because you are not the only person in control. You're given an entity outside of your self control where you decide on the inputs. And this is similar to how we do our everyday life with social media, Twitter, Facebook. We read something, we read digest, and then we respin out. And this could happen with art forms. So on the bottom is a snippet of a language that I've been working on where everything is based on misdirection. So as you can see, the color red is actually not in red. It's actually in a green and it's misspelled. I wrote top left corner square with a circle. And all of this is just to show that even though I'm telling you that I purposely done this, your mind is going somewhere else. At the moment, some of you are probably looking at something that you relate more on the mistakes. And this is another thing that you gain through discussions with other people, that we all have our own pet peeve. So it's just very interesting on which pet peeve you follow more on the other. And this is all to say that everything can be inspiration, open knowledge, freestyling jam culture, and observation of the mundane. Because art and tech doesn't always have to be complex. You can turn something simple as a snowflake or as the moon and build your whole art upon it. And then you could find ways to be random. And then you could take assess and feedback, critiques to push forward or push back. And as you can realize, a lot of what I'm saying is not really a result driven art form, but it's really process based, where everything is process driven to the point that the process itself becomes its own life form, its own procedure. So I'm gonna end this before there's a slight Q&A or if anything with this last line where poetry is code, code is poetry. This translation occurs daily. It happens naturally. What is your current rhyme scheme? What is your current code block? What's your internal tempo? What's your internal clock? And when in the day do you decide to put your head on the bed and let the day of tomorrow rise as today you decide has come to an end, has come to a stop?